Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Thank you so much, Melissa. It's an honor to be speaking to you today, Miss Tarana. And it's an honor to be presented with this Girl Hero Award. Girl Up has presented me and provided me with so many opportunities and resources to be able to just have my leadership skills and also show the world my leadership skills and show the world the power that young women have in when it comes to activism.
Yeah, I would not be here if not for organizations like Girl Up and youth and believing in youth leadership development. Organizations that came into my community and told me at a very early age that I had power. And so it's an honor both to be receiving this award from Girl Up and to be receiving it with you, Alliyah, because honestly, I this work started because of girls who look like me, like you, and just to know that that is continuing in another generation is really, it's the best gift and honor that I can receive. And thank
I
you,
think you
Melissa,
hit the
also for
point.
choosing us
Yeah.
both.
Yes, you hit the point there with that. I think this is all an intergenerational movement where we're empowering young people, but also looking upon our elders to be able to make sure that we're getting wisdom for them within that. And for Mr. Rana, I did want to ask you a question on the beginning of the Me Too movement. So I've done a lot of research on when it started, but I would love to hear from you. Did you imagine it becoming as big of a movement as it is today? And if so, what was the process of that going through, creating it and seeing what it is today? And is it what you have hoped for?
I think one of the lessons that I've learned in the last 3 years is that as big as I wanted Me Too to be when I first started it, I envisioned it being because nobody really wanted to talk about sexual violence. It wasn't a topic that people, even in social justice circles, really wanted to tackle. I thought that I would create something that would resonate from survivor to survivor. And that people would see like Me Too bumper stickers or like decals in your window and know that that was a safe space for survivors, kind of like the rainbow flag is for the queer community, right? I wanted something that signaled to other survivors that they weren't alone and that we had this, global community. But even in wanting that, I think I kept that in the back of my mind as like the you know the north is the north furthermost of stars, right? The north star. And I don't know that I actually believed that it was possible. And so one of the things that I've learned in the last 3 years is that even Black girls who dream don't tend to dream big enough, right? Because the world tells us
Exactly.
that we just can't, we can only have but so much. You can achieve and accomplish, but somebody's going to put a limitation there at some point. So to answer your question, it is both what I dreamed it would be and not what I thought it would ever be. I am in awe every day that we are, kind of allowed to continue this international dialogue about sexual violence, this ongoing dialogue, growing dialogue about sexual violence. And I'm pleased. I'm always still very much like, wow, here we are.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it's just been a fascinating journey to me. So I have a question for you.
Okay, go for it.
And I mean, it's kind of thinking about what I just said about big dreams. I think I was fortunate enough to know what I wanted to do at 14. And you're so young, and it seems like you're on that path already in a very similar fashion. So I'm wondering about what your big dream is for the world. Like, I know your passion right now and you're working on gun violence, but I saw in your bio you deal with gender equity and economic equity and all these other things. So, what is your big dream for the world?
That is a great question, and I don't even think I can give a concrete answer right now to you. But I think when I'm looking at my work and I'm looking at the different fields that I'm in, whether it's gender equality or gun violence prevention or even education equity, I think there's this underlining foundation of making sure that spaces are safe for people who look like me and for people who don't look like me. I think you know, starting this work from a young age, I've always thought that, and I've always seen this, that if I wasn't in the room, And me being a part of so many different identities. I'm Jamaican, I'm a child of immigrants, I'm a Black woman, I'm from the Bronx. Like being a part of all these identities were really important to me. But when we got in those spaces and when I was in those spaces, there weren't people who had those identities. There weren't people who spoke like me or looked like me or came from the same cultural background. So I knew it was very important to have myself in the room to be able to advocate, for my larger community as a whole. But I think my hope for the world and my dream for the world is to be able to create and actually build safer spaces for students and for young
Mm.
people, and specifically for Black and Brown girls, who are oftentimes left out of the conversation when it comes to these issues that are most impacting us and impacting our livelihood. My biggest dream is to work at the United Nations doing international work when it comes
Okay.
to defending human rights. Um, and I think that's the way I find myself creating those safer spaces for young people around the world. But right now, I really try to make sure that I'm empowering other Black and Brown girls to be able to get out there and use their voice and let their voices be heard. I think oftentimes people say, give the voice to the voiceless, and I kind of disagree with that because we're not voiceless. We're here,
Right.
we're here,
Exactly.
we're speaking and we're speaking up, but it's just no one's listening. So
Hmm.
um, I think
I
that's
say
a
this
very
all the
important
time.
motto. Yeah,
Yeah, people say things like give voice to the voiceless. So you've given voice to so many women and survivors. And I said, no, we just figured out a frequency where you can hear us. We've been screaming
exactly.
and singing the same song for decades and decades and decades. And somehow or another, we've stumbled upon a frequency where folks can hear us. So, oh, I actually have another question for you
Okay.
because, we're Bronx girls, BS.
Boogie down.
We couldn't get out of here without throwing up our F. Um, and one of the things that was always a challenge for me when I was growing up was when I traveled outside of the Bronx. I would say I was from the Bronx. People had no idea what that. Oh, are you from the projects? Oh, is it really terrible? How do you get back and forth to school? Is it safe? I mean, all, the misconceptions run deep.
Exactly.
And
I
when
mean,
you look around, right, Bronx girls are running the world, right? From AOC to Cardi B, we are everywhere
we are
in
out
between,
here.
right? We
Yeah.
out here. And so I think about girls coming from the Bronx now, and with this new, like, I think the ideas about the Bronx have changed some because of the mainstreaming of some of the folks from there. Um, do you feel a particular kind of two things? Do you feel a particular kind of burden because you're from the Bronx? And do you feel a particular kind of motivation because you're from the Bronx?
hmm I mean, this is a great question, and I don't often get asked this question because I don't think people realize, the connotation that people have when I say like I'm from the Bronx. And thank
Oh
you so
yeah.
much for asking that. Um, and I think when I first started, my activism, I was about 13 or 14, and of course it has
Mhm.
changed since then. But when I first started, I was kind of like disappointed to be from the Bronx. Not, I think
Mhm.
the
I
disappointed
know
is
what you
not the
mean.
right word.
No,
Yeah,
but I
I
get
was
you.
like,
I get what you mean.
yeah, like I'm from the Bronx, and I didn't shout it out as much as I do now. But as I progressed throughout the years, I'm like, I'm from the Bronx. Like
Mhm.
this is my home. This is where I'm from. And anytime I'm at a speech, anytime I'm at an event, I'm always like, I'm a Jamaican American youth advocate from the Bronx. Those
Come
identities
on.
are those identities are so important to me, and I think when people see someone like me say I'm from the Bronx, it breaks those types of connotation that they have that people from the Bronx are not educated or are not smart, or we have to speak in one way to be viewed as educated. So I always jack up from the Bronx all the time
Mhm.
now, just because I'm breaking that narrative. And I'm also showing other young people my age that you
Yeah.
can be from the Bronx and be well
And do whatever
educated. You
you
can
want.
speak exactly. You can speak how you want. You don't have to speak in a specific dialect or a specific tone to be viewed as smart or well educated. And a lot of times, the work I do is just sitting down and having conversations with other young people and saying, well, like, we're from the Bronx. Like, they're either going to listen to us or we're going to say it louder. So
Yeah.
it's one or
I
the
like
other.
that. You're gonna listen to us and
Yeah,
we're gonna say it louder. That's it. People call me a Bronx nationalist. I rep the Bronx everywhere I go. I make sure people
everywhere.
could get
People
it
know I'm from the
clear
Bronx.
all day.
Yeah.
I'm from the Bronx.
And,
I wore my
and
bamboos today in honor of the Bronx.
I should have put mine on. But I think it just definitely motivates me so much more to see where I came from in my community. Like, I live
Absolutely.
in a neighborhood that is full of different people, all from the West Indies, from the
Hmm.
Caribbeans. Like, and that's just so important to my identity to be able to say, like,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm from here. Like, yeah, I'm from this island. Like, I'm all of these things, but I'm also well
and
educated. I'm also eloquent. I'm also all of these things, and you can be both simultaneously, and we don't have to like choose one or the other. So thank you for that
absolutely.
question. I rep the Bronx forever now. I think
All right,
it's been a learning
absolutely.
process, but I rep it forever.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I have one last question for you, and I think this past summer we've seen the Black Lives Matter movement, across the world. People standing in solidarity with Black
Hmm.
lives and defending our human rights and our human decency. So, as a part of the Me Too movement, do you see any parallels, or do you see any ways that both of these movements come together as one?
Absolutely. I think that one of the challenges of this moment is that people can't see those can't naturally see that link, right? One, I had people saying, why are you talking about this? This has nothing to do with me too. And I'm like, first of all, my Black life matters, right? I'm a Black
Hmm.
woman who has visibility and a voice. I'm absolutely going to use it to amplify the concerns of my community. But also there are very few social justice issues that are not inextricably linked to sexual violence. And if you care about Black lives, then you have to care about the fullness of Black lives. We don't just want to not
Hmm.
be killed by the police. We want to live full lives and thrive. And one of the things that takes away from that is the violence that we experience. And a lot of that violence happens at the hands of the police. Now, the thing that people need to understand is police brutality is the number one complaint against law enforcement in this country. The number two complaint behind that is sexual violence. And if you know that Black people have a higher rate of adverse interactions with law enforcement, then it only bears to follow that Black women would be having adverse interactions in regards to sexual violence, right, with
Hmm.
law enforcement. We had a police officer like 5 years ago, Daniel Holtzclaw, who was tried and convicted as a serial rapist of Black women in his community just because he knew he'd get away with it. So this is not far fetched. This is not something that people are speculating
Hmm.
on. There is a direct link between the valuing of Black lives and the valuing of Black survivors. There is an epidemic of sexual violence in the prison system. And the prisons are overrun with Black people, right? There is an epidemic of Black trans women being sexually assaulted and murdered. All of that matters, and it's all connected to both the work that we do in the Me Too movement and the amplification of Black lives and of caring for Black lives. So there are many links between these two movements. I think they happen simultaneously and they complement each other. And for certain, like Patrice Cullors and Alicia Garza are friends and have been incredibly supportive of the movement and the work I've done, both before and after the viral hashtag. And I feel the same way about them, and all of the people who are moving forward the efforts, the movement for Black Lives. So it's an incredible moment. It's an incredible moment, I think, not just for Black people, but for all people, right? I think all of
Yeah.
this work deepens our humanity. And if we are not connected to ways to deepen our humanity, none of this will matter. None of this work will matter. None of this activism, organizing will matter if we are lost, as if our humanity is lost somehow in there. So, yeah, thank you for that question. I think it's an important one to explore in this moment.
Miss Tarana, thank you so much for being here and speaking with me today. Congratulations again for your Girl Hero Awards. It's greatly deserved. You are absolutely amazing, and it was an honor, to represent the Bronx with you on this panel. Thank you so much to
Yes.
Girl Up again for this award and for continuing to invest in young girls around the world. It is organizations like Girl Up that continues to defend human rights for young girls.
Thank you, Alliyah. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you. It's such a pleasure to see young people, particularly young women, who are carrying the torch forward. And I can't thank Girl Up enough for this honor. Congratulations on your award as well. I know it's the
Thank
first
you.
of many. And I just appreciate what the work of Girl Up and the work that you were doing, Alliyah, as both an organizer and activist in your own right.